This morning, when I was coming back into this physical reality, I could hear and see a message, which I'm still uncoding, but more uncoding came in. And so the first thing as I was coming in, I saw our calendar, and just one day, just like on your phone when you see the calendar and you just look at one day, and the day was May 31st. And a voice sounded very clearly and just said, transitions will start on May 31st. So that was it. And as an oracle, I always make the promise not to make anything up and add to it. So I just said it as it is, not knowing what type of transitions. I don't want to guess. And then when we were meditating with Orin, which we will do again today, so I was just connecting with the divine self, just like all of us were. And I heard the second part, and it was supposed to be the second part, the door will open. Again, I don't know what door will open, door to where will open, but now I'm thinking, the doors will open and we will be transitioning to a different dimension, to a different place. You never know. And so what I'm thinking is that it would be good to be meditating on the 31st. And so if you have time, join us on the 31st. It's a Saturday for us here, and we will again be instructed what it is that needs to be done, should be done. And hopefully it is the doors to divine reality. Thank you, Isabel. So I found it fascinating. There are a few seers on this planet that have proven to be, through time and repetition, very accurate, close to accurate, which is very good. And so I always look at people like Judith Kussel in South Africa. She's been a spiritual teacher for many years. I always look at Pars Kutey. I think he's in Turkey, not sure exactly. You find them all on Facebook. I look at Valerie A. Elster. She says she's an oracle from Mu, which I believe. She always puts a little post, like 4 lines, but it's always 100%. She actually, I think, is one of the most accurate ones out there. Valerie A. Elster on, for those of you guys who already know who it is and how to spell it, put it in the chat, please. She, I think, has been always 100%. And she does just little like words, just, she just said yesterday, the corridor at Mount Shasta will open. And I thought, that's very interesting as we are preparing as a group to go to Mount Shasta in a few days, really, to be with Don Umberto, the high priest from the Grand Central Sun. So I looked this afternoon at what everybody's saying. Nobody was saying anything except for Judith Kussel. And Judith Kussel said the cosmic doors are opening. And of course, that is, thank you, Valerie A. Elster. That's it. Amazing. Very good. So, this is beyond astrology, of course, because astrology belongs to the false matrix. And I really think most of this astrological stuff that we've had to do with the influences of the false matrix. We know for sure that there were even programs, artificial programs, running and being sent from other planets and other systems to planet Earth to disrupt humanity, to bring us suffering. And it was not a natural program. So to me, a natural program is, for example, when we work with divine will and we are receiving the light of the divine will coming to us from the Big Dipper. That is a natural, really, code, and we are receiving these codes. Many of you probably experienced amazing things when we were working with Sanat Kumara, and we were receiving coded light. So that is natural code, natural program. But of course, in the false matrix, not only was the false matrix here on this planet, it was an interdimensional false matrix. So it included the dimensions that surround us, which also included for us the astral plane and the fourth dimension. And so they were sending artificial programs, artificial code, and never, never friendly. So our astrology, I think, no longer is reliable. And so it's good to look at the seers and the oracles, what they see and what they perceive through the divine self. For example, an oracle always works through the divine self and never from the personality self. And that means first, an oracle has to align with the divine self to be able to have visibility into these cosmic realms and universal realms, of course, because the human person doesn't have this access. And so it's just a matter of receiving it directly. So the doors, the door, I only heard the door, I didn't hear doors. The door will open and transitions will start on May 31st. Again, I don't think it has anything to do with any astrology, but more with these cosmic energies, universal energies. The Turkish one is Pars Kutey. Again, I know some of you already know Pars because I often share about Pars. Thank you. He is also great in really reading the energy when it's happening. So what we will be doing today is a fabulous, powerful, really initiation transmission ceremony with our beloved Orin. I've had several meetings by now with Orin in higher realms, and Orin always comes with Sanaya. Sanaya was the person in this world who had contact with Orin and who brought all the teachings of Orin. And so they are very active right now. And I actually had an experience which was quite amazing. Just before we were starting working with Divine Will, I was I don't know what to say. I was met in higher realms by Orin and Sanaya. In a way, they came to me, and we were in a very large group, which I assume was all of us who were going to work with Divine Will. And it was Orin who came to instruct on how Divine Will should be taught. So imagine this incredible stuff that goes on when we actually work with Orin, and then we have these encounter with Orin and Sanaya in higher realms, and we actually even receive instructions on how to teach, for example, Divine Will, and also how not to teach Divine Will. So it was really amazing. It was really refining how it's going to be transmitted. So as we do all this work here, we are always supported. I find it so moving to know that we are never alone. And not only are we never alone because of all the assistance we get from Orin and the great ones and all the master beings we've worked with, but there are so many incredibly loving, caring beings from all the different realms. And then the one who really loves us, just so that you know, the one who really, really loves us is our soul. On the soul plane, the soul just adores us, each single one of us, no matter what. And that's just something that I think is good to remember, that we are always incredibly loved. And so today we will be going into the divine self with Orin and aligning with divine will. Now, I've been teaching here about, or sharing rather than teaching about divine self so much because I find that divine self is what Ascension is all about. I bring my stories, my experiences, and I use them as my teaching tools because I think that without the experience of the divine self, where it's very, very powerful, transformational, it would be hard to teach about divine self. It would just be some information. But I know that when I share these stories, they're always charged with energy, energy of transformation. And it's like my divine self's talking to your divine self. And so we get ignited together and we get activated together. So that's the beauty of having actually these spiritual, true, authentic experiences. So Ascension really is the shift from reverse, which is the personality self, to drive, which is the divine self. If anything has always been pulling us in the opposite direction, away actually from the truth, is our personality self. And usually, no matter how spiritually, you know, knowledgeable a person is. You know, sometimes people read a lot and they have a lot of spiritual knowledge, but without experiencing the divine self, it's really not complete. So that's why I put such an emphasis on actually divine self, so that everybody gets to meet the divine self. The meetings that I experienced myself have had different nature and different intensity. The first one was just the most surprising voice that sounded from my heart, and it lasted for several days. And it happened simply after meditating with Orin. So that's why I bring meditations with Orin always to this community here, because I found them so incredibly transformational in quantum leap. And it's good. It's nice to experience something so big that of course it makes you keep going. So when I experienced the divine self for the first time, it was this incredible voice that I could actually hear. So it was like clairaudient voice, and it was talking to me. And it was just the most loving voice that you can possibly imagine. And it was coming from the heart, but it was not the heart talking to me. It was the divine self talking. And the divine self even introduced itself. And I cannot say it's a he, she, it's much more just it. And it was just so flowing after that one meditation, and it was nonstop for several days. And any question I had, the divine self immediately answered. And I didn't have to ask with my voice. I just had a thought, and the divine self would immediately respond. So that was my first experience with the divine self, realizing that it's always within us. And of course, as a typical human, I said, please stay. Is there anything I can do for you to always stay? Is there anything that I do wrong in my life where you would go away? And the divine self said, I never ever go anywhere. It's only up to you to attune to me, to the divine self. And so that was really wonderful to know that there is absolutely nothing, you know, like people say, you cannot drink coffee, it will do this and that to you. You cannot do this or that, it will disrupt your connection with the divine. But the divine said there is nothing that could actually disrupt the connection. And the only thing is to attune ourselves. So whether it is through meditation, whether it is through mantra, whether it is through dancing, whether it is in nature, it really didn't matter at all, as long as one would find a way to attune and to click right in. So then in 2020, I actually was going through several years of contact with the divine self, and it was like on and off. It was like random, unexpected. And the divine self would be giving me my past lives, would just give me a complete recall of everything important for this lifetime. So that's the thing that the divine self can do. And then the huge downloads came with the divine self. But in 2020, the divine self appeared like a structure above my being. And I watched the divine self truly download its structure. It was a really unbelievable, life-changing experience. Nothing like this I've ever experienced. And it totally changed everything. So it happened, during Lionsgate, which is a very powerful portal. But I could watch it. I could see it, you know. I was just laying in bed next to my husband, and then suddenly this divine self came right in. And I don't know exactly what caused it, you know, because was it for all of us on 8/8? Was it the portal? Was it that we were at Mount Shasta? I don't know. Was it that I meditated a lot? I really don't know. But it happened. And when it happened, it was downloading into my being, and it was this huge geometrical shape, and it had light and it had sound. It had so many geometrical shapes. It had all the different colors of the light. And as it was happening, it was making sound. And then my body started to completely, of itself, without me doing anything, also making sounds. And it was making a sound that will not surprise you. It was making the sound of I am, I am, I am. And so that was my first realization that the divine self is 100% the I am. And so when we say divine self, it is speaking about the I am. When we say that powerful, magical, it's like invocation, I am the I am that I am, that we are immediately speaking the language of the divine self. It's really incredible. So I recommend, throughout the day to remind yourself of who you truly are and also let go of that which you are not. Which we are not is, I think, everything that we at some point thought that we were. So, that's a lot of letting go. How do you even explain it to anyone? How do you say, oh, by the way, you are not real, you are not the true self. You are not this person. You are the divine self, but that's not really you. The divine self is the real self. The you is the divine self. The little person is a very small expression of the divine self. The way that the divine self is channeled into us is through that kind of download of light, the download of sound, download of geometry. The divine self doesn't go anywhere. It is always source self. So you could say it is in the source, and it is always eternal. It is always unchanging, and it contains all solutions to all things beyond this world. When I had another experience with the divine self and I entered the divine self field, I just kept hearing Alpha and Omega, Alpha and Omega. And to me, it meant that the divine self is the beginning and the end. That within the divine self, everything is complete. And so, for example, here we might experience ill health. And so we have a problem. We say, I've got disease. Well, the divine self never had that problem. It doesn't experience ill health. It doesn't even see us as ill. It is always in perfect health. But within the divine self, health has nothing to do with the physical body. It is energy that exists within the divine self, and it is the energy of God. So within the divine self, which you can imagine as a luminous sun that is above your head, high above, in the highest dimension of your own being. So if there was a sun, then that sun would be your divine self. And the divine self does exactly what the sun does. It simply shines, and it shines upon not only you, but the first aspect that it shines upon is your soul. So first, the soul is actually created by the divine self. And that soul is created to contain many, many, many millions, if not billions, if not trillions of experiences that all are being dreamt by the soul. And we are just one little dream of the soul. So first, the divine self illuminates the soul, and the soul is nourished by the divine self, by the light of the divine self. That is what nourishes the soul. That light flows into the soul, and it creates all these different tendencies. It creates all these opportunities. It is like a fuel for the soul to keep dreaming, to have beautiful dreams, hopefully. And then we are just down here, also illuminated through this downward waterfall of light. So first, we need to let go of the limitation, which is the personality self. Then we connect with the bigger picture, which is our soul. And then we connect with the biggest picture, which is our divine self. So it's very simple. And this is exactly what you would also experience if you are a yogi who, for example, has studied with Yogananda, with Self-Realization Fellowship, or Ananda. And through the practice of Kriya Yoga, which is magnetizing your spine through pranayama, you will have all these experiences, first of the soul and then of your spirit. Spirit divine self, I am, is all the same. It's just different names. And so I found a song with our dear brother Ram Dass that many of you surely came across on your spiritual journey. And I think this song really nails it. It really explains all these things that we have been just speaking about. So I'm going to play a song to you, which is Ram Dass giving some wisdom of the soul and the false self.
The universe is a manifestation of the One. And the oneness is inside the soul. The soul is our real self. The ego is who we think we are. And the soul is really, really who we are. Soul comes from the One, from the God. And we are spiritual beings visiting humanity. We're all satsang. We are all truth. We are all truth. We're all we are all if you identify with your soul, then you see other people as souls. And souls love one another. Love one another. It's easy as a soul to love everybody. manifestations of the one. Just let it go.
So we are all manifestations of the one, and all souls love one another. I think that's our destiny for sure. That was very cool. It's a great dance song. And so we will get ready for our meditation. Again, today's meditation will be life-changing. How could it not? To me, every meditation that we do is life-changing. And you know, since now and again you run into people who are truly clairvoyant, and then when they see you, they say, "Whoa, what have you done? You are filled with light, surrounded by a light. Light is flowing through you. Divine Self is above you." So, you know, all this is tangible. So, we are aligning today with Divine Self and with Divine Plan, as well as with Divine Will. The grand divine plan for this creation, so the entire cosmic creation, is that everything came from the Divine Self, the One. The One is the Divine Self that created many. And so we know from Yogananda it was not necessary, but here we are. So I'm glad that Spirit was having fun and decided to have fun with us. So it is Spirit's desireless desire to enjoy its bliss as many selves was unnecessary to the complete and perfect Spirit. And so we share exactly the same complete and perfect Spirit, which is our Divine Self. And so we will receive now a transmission of Divine Will, which attunes us to Divine Self. If you see the Big Dipper tonight and see all the UFOs flying around, which is just norm these days, then the Big Dipper is emanating the 7 qualities of Divine Will, which is some of the most powerful forces in this universe. And I wanted to bring this quote from Orin, which I think is useful every day, just to remind us, let the highest light and divine will guide my actions and thoughts. Every day, the highest light. And so again, as we work with divine will, divine self, we are truly fulfilling divine plan, all the wonderful divine things. And here is our meditation. This is for free on orindaben.com. I again will pause recording. You can find it just clicking on the email that I sent today. And so it is. And so our mantra every day, many times, is I am that I am. I am my divine self. I am. I am. I am. And that is a very powerful mantra. That I use too when I travel out of body, for example. You can actually focus on your third eye when you are laying down on your back and just simply chant, I am, I am, I am in your third eye, focusing on your third eye. And it's a very easy and powerful way to go actually out of body into your divine self. So we have all these great tricks here. So what's going to happen on the 29th, which is a Thursday here, we will have 2 calls at 11 and 5 p.m. like we always do. And so we will continue the great work. And on Saturday, we will only have 1 call, and it will be the evening call at 5 p.m. So thank you so much for being here. And as always, many blessings to all of you. Thank you.